Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. So today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book It's Not Your Fault, no other than Mr. Rogers Follansbee. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Rogers, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm very pleased to be on your program. Um, I am, at the present time, living in California. I came here just several months ago, and um, I have spent most of my life engaged in what people can read in my book, It's Not Your Fault, which is a new psychological theory on human behavior. And so I've been dedicating my life more or less over the years to that particular subject. And that particular subject then has been published and now is in book form and can be purchased on Amazon or any other numerous places, and deals with human psychology in general and the theory that we are basically all structured in exactly the same way. So, where there is a question about our behavior or the way we think or the way we feel, we can discover the answer to our questions by understanding the way that we are structured, understanding the basic principle, which is outlined in my book, It's Not Your Fault.
Mr. Rogers Follansbee, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. What is the main message you want the readers to take away from this book?
I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that we're not only not alone, but we cannot be alone, in the sense that if there is something psychological about our lives that concerns us, that may bother us, that may um, delight us or not delight us, we should not look entirely within ourselves for the answers, but that we should look elsewhere. We should look outside of ourselves to those things, those people, those circumstances with which we come into relationship. Because indeed, the way we are pieced together or structured psychologically is a combination of what we are genetically and what we are as we slowly gain information from the outside world. It is a relational event. Our lives are relational events, and so is our psychology.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Rogers. And can you explain the title, It's Not Your Fault, and what it means in the context of the book?
The, the title comes from the fact that oftentimes we believe that everything we think or feel or do is entirely our responsibility. But in this book, you'll find that it is not necessarily our responsibility, but the responsibility of the way we're structured. That is to say, from birth, the way that we are psychologically pieced together shows clearly that we depend on that structure entirely for the results that appear in regard to the way we think and the way we feel. And the way we think and we feel are those elements that then promote or put into action the kind of behavior that we have. So when somebody says, well, that is the fault of so-and-so, that he is arrogant or that he is slow or that he is too fast or whatever, is not entirely that person's fault. Indeed, that person is simply following the structure that outlines the way we all think and feel and do the things we do.
Mr. Roger, is the book more about personal accountability or about understanding external circumstances?
It's about both those things at the same time, simultaneously. Um, so it would be hard to answer that on a pick a side, as it were. I'd have to say that no, that indeed um, it is a perfect simultaneous combination of those two elements. The fact that we are born with certain innate, natural, genetic information that comes into relational contact with the outside world that makes us, each one of us, the people that we are.
Very well said. Very well said, Mr. Rogers. Very well said. And how do you balance the idea of responsibility with the reality of things beyond our control?
Well, I think in that very way, the fact that we are not totally in control of our lives, that what is in control of our lives is the structure we must follow. Right there, you can see that the responsibility of the way we think or feel or do cannot be entirely ours, but laden on the responsibility of the way we were put together in the beginning. The way everything is put together, not just human beings, but any living thing. And if you want to stretch that out as far as it can go, you'll find that the structure structures everything that is. It's an existential idea. So you can see that the responsibility that we have for our actions cannot be ours alone. They have to be linked in some relational way to the reasons why we do what we do, which is due to the way we're structured.
Mr. Rogers, what audience did you have in mind when writing this book?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
What audience did you have in mind when you were writing this book?
Uh-huh. Well, I think everybody, because once we get beyond a certain age, we begin to question ourselves and we begin to question our own lives and the lives of others. And we have no answers to those questions. We don't understand why we feel the way we feel or do the things we do. And we certainly don't understand why other people feel the way they feel and do the things they do. And the relationship between what other people do and what we do, what other people feel and we feel, it is tantamount to being able to understand life itself. And I think that as we grow older, we become more and more interested in understanding why we're here, what we're doing here, what our goals are, and why we are inclined to behave in one way or the other.
Mr. Rogers, how do people typically react when they told something is not their fault, and how you should they?
Well, it depends on what the case may be, but normally there's a certain degree of relief, not always, but in some cases, in many cases, relief for not being entirely responsible for something that is negative, whereas you'll find that things that are positive and looked upon by others as being positive um, will not please those that want to share their responsibility for whatever is being positively looked on. So it depends on the scenario of each particular case.
Were there any difficult truth you had to confront in your own life while writing this book?
Well, I think that the most, um, I, I would say, shocking or revealing better, um, pieces of data that were acquired while I was writing this is the fact that half of who we are And that's just a number I'm throwing out. I have no idea what the actual percentage is. But a good part of who we are does not come from us at all. It comes from our environment. It comes from those around us, things and people and events that we relate to, that become part of who we become. That is something that was revealed to me when the theory was being developed, that I felt was totally nuanced and totally different from the way many psychologists see their patients and those around them and themselves in a normal context. Once we understand how we're structured, that all changes dramatically.
How does your book help people deal with guilt and shame?
I think in the minute that you understand that you are not entirely responsible for the things you feel or the things you do, even the things you think, there is a certain relief, and that comes through understanding. That is to say, you understand how you are structured, you understand how you're put together, and that understanding is an anxiety killer. That is to say, the anxiety that you may or may not feel about the life you're leading and the way you're leading it is affected by your knowledge. It is affected by the things you know. So once you understand how and why you do the things you do, that becomes a relief to you and is, as I said before, something that deals very effectively with anxiety.
Mr. Rogers, what practical steps do you offer readers to move forward when they feel stuck?
Well, I think it's a question of understanding, once again, how each one of us are put together in a psychological sense. So if there is something that can be taken from my book and used on a daily basis, it's that very thing. It's the knowledge that we are relational beings, that we depend as much on our genetic background as we do on everything we come into relational contact with. The people that surround us, the work we have, the ambience we live in, all have radical influences over the way we think, feel, and do. So that is the important piece of data that I think can be taken from the book itself, understanding that others have a great responsibility about the way we live our lives, much more than it's ever been thought of. So when we realize that our lives are lives that are shared, that are relational, that are part of a bigger world out there, we understand that we're just more and more piece of the puzzle, and that this puzzle can be taken apart and understood clearly by understanding the way we are psychologically put together.
Mr. Rogers, as an author, what is your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Well, I think the short-term goal is that anyone who reads the book begins to understand who they are and why they do the things they do, why they think the way they think and feel the way they feel. The long-term goals that I have is that eventually we all understand how this structure works and works for not only us, but everyone we come into relational contact with, which means that we're able to analyze quickly and effectively why we feel the way we do. And when that feeling is a negative one that disturbs us or concerns us or in some way affects us negatively, we understand why that's happening, and that way regain control over those feelings, and in that way dissolve their intent and dissolve the intensity that they might have on us.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Rogers, and looking for more books to come. And what would be your advice for those people that want to write their own book?
Well, I think that anybody who has a good idea that they feel is a good idea, one that can help others, will be able to write their own book and have it published and have others understand what their goals are. I think anybody can become a writer if they're really intent on becoming one.
Indeed, and stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, write, and share to the world. And thank you for your advice, Mr. Rogers. So, how can someone shift from a victim mindset to an empowered one?
I think by reading the book and understanding the structure itself, you no longer will feel like a victim. Um, we, each one of us individually, is as much the cause of a certain reaction in others, and not just other people, but other things, as we are receivers of the influence that other things and other people have on us. So if we understand that no matter what happens and no matter how we may feel, the result of that is coming from a relational event, and that is a relational event that we share. Nobody is entirely responsible for anything that happens. It's always a shared responsibility.
Very well said, Mr. Rogers. Beautifully articulated. What practical steps do you offer readers to move forward when they're feeling unsettled?
I think, again, I would give the same advice. Feeling unsettled is a way of expressing anxiety, and anxiety comes from a lack of knowledge. Basically, it's been proven that not knowing, not understanding, not seeing is something that creates a certain degree of mystery in our lives, unwanted mystery, mystery that we cannot deal with because we don't have the tools to deal with those mysteries. But once you understand how you're put together or how you're structured, you are armed with information and knowledge which can help you attain the goal of understanding why you feel the way you feel. So, again, I would say that reading the book, It's Not Your Fault, or going to the website, structuredpsychology.com, you can get a taste of the approach that I've taken to understanding the world around us and why we do the things we do.
What are some of the myths about fault or blame that you aim to debunk?
I think very often when we are confronted with being accused of doing one thing or feeling in one way, um, that our conduct is something that is not um, in coherence with the conduct that is required by the environment we live in, those around us, our social structure, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that already is something that creates in us a considerable amount of anxiety. And again, that is what we would call a negative kind of response from the relationship that we have with our society. But once we understand how we're put together, even though the society we live in does not understand how we're put together or how we're structured, it gives us enough power to understand um, that particular dynamic and therefore reduce the anxiety that we feel.
Mr. Rogers, if you could summarize your book's philosophy in one sentence, what would it be?
Well, I suppose that if we understand that um, the the power that we have once we understand the way we're structured, is one that can be used throughout our lives and should be used each and every time we question something, not only from ourselves, but from others that we don't understand. We simply apply the structure and then instantly we'll understand what's going on.
Indeed. Totally agree with you, Mr. Rogers. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to one of my audiobooks, people, because Book 101 Review Volume 3 is on Audible, Book 101 Review Volume 2 selected, and Book 101 Review Volume 1 highly recommended. These are the products of my first season on Book 101 Review, and one of my self-help books, Threads of Existence, or self-help books, Threads of Existence, Weaving the Tapestry of Life, Stand Tall, Stand Together, Breaking the Chains of Bullying, and Life is Too Short, a journey, a discovery, and fulfillment and joy. And one of my climate change book, Earth Fevered, Unraveling Climate, and Our Race to Restore Balance, available on Audible and one of the bestsellers. So, Mr. Rogers, are you planning a sequel or a follow-up book to expand on the ideas of It's Not My Fault, or
Yes,
It's Not Your Fault?
yes, there are plans for possibly a second publication, which we're working on at the present time.
Awesome, awesome. Looking forward for that, Mr. Rogers. And can you please invite our listeners to support your book itself?
Yes, indeed, I would encourage anyone who is interested in themselves and others to do just that. Purchase the book. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault, people. Let's support Mr. Rogers, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Rogers, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Monica, people, see you soon.